Hello, welcome to another video. So today's video is going to be about calories and how many calories you need, and is it true what they say that you really do need as many calories, and am I that am I that sick that I actually need that many calories, and blah blah blah. So firstly, short answer is yes, you do need a lot of calories to recover. You are in a calorie deficit that your body has picked up or accumulated over the years of dieting restriction. It can be months. Even if you've been on, restrictive diet for a number of months, your body has still had damage done to it. And you will still need a huge amount of calories to pay back the debt, essentially. And I think a lot of people do really struggle with that concept because you can't necessarily see the damage. Sorry, my dog's making weird noises if you can hear him. You can't necessarily see the damage, so it's really hard to kind of pinpoint, oh, but what is it? My leg's not dropping off, I'm fine in myself, so is there really that much damage? And I guess the only way you can start to realize the damage you've done is to start recovering. And when I started recovering, it really did hit me like a ton of bricks. Wow, I was knackered. I had all this edema and all this swelling and all this weight gain. And only then did I really appreciate the damage I'd done. And so a good way to sort of assess it yourself is, number one, do you diet and do you restrict? And number two, are you one of those people that thinks, if I eat anything I like, I will gain weight quickly? Because that's a massive telltale sign. If your body is gaining weight really easily, then your body is probably damaged, very damaged from years of dieting and restriction, and you need to eat recovery amounts of food. Another way of looking at it is as well that healthy people eat this amount of food. They might not eat the huge amounts that you will need in early stages of recovery, but the minimums that are required, that is what a healthy person eats anyway. That's what they're based on. You can find them in the ED Institute. This is where I sort of got them from for myself, my recovery. So to sort of look at these minimums and think, well, no, that's not for me because I'm not disordered, I eat like a normal person anyway. It's not quite true if you're not hitting these minimums. And you might think, well, my friend doesn't actually eat that amount. And I think you'd be surprised that over a long period of time, they actually do eat that amount. It's just that it's in little bits here and there, and it might be some underreporting, and you might not necessarily see what they're eating on a full given week, for example. So, the answer is that yes, you do need these amounts of calories, and if you gain weight or if you restrict your diet, then you need them even more, and probably a whole lot more to begin with. So what are the minimums? So the minimums are, for me, or were for me, 2,500 calories. For other people, they may be 3,500 calories. It depends on your height, it depends on your age, and it depends on your gender. So that was what mine were at the beginning of recovery, based on my own metrics. And you may have the same, you may have a little bit more, it depends. And obviously, if you're a much larger BMI, you will probably want to add more onto it, or you might naturally find yourself that you eat more because you're a bigger body. And if you're pregnant, for example, or breastfeeding, then again, you're going to need more. So absolutely treat your minimums, again, that you can find on the ED Institute, as complete base level. You should be eating more, and you will probably, certainly at the beginning, find yourself really craving more. And when I say the beginning, that can be the first 3 months, it can be the first 6 months, it can be the first year, it can go on for a few years where you find yourself just needing to eat and eat and eat. There's no set structure or time frame for when this is going to happen. So when you find out what your minimum is, you know, okay, so let's just say for argument's sake it's 3,000 calories. That is what you need to eat on a daily basis at minimum. If you start to eat that amount, then initially you might find that it's really difficult to eat that amount. So you might think, God, I just, you know, I feel like I'm really stuffing this food in. I feel bloated. I feel, you know, like just, disgusting. That's completely normal at the beginning. Even though you've got a cellular deficit in your body, at a deeper level, you know, in terms of your organs and your body and your blood and things like that, your body needs a lot of calories to replenish all the damage that's been done, but your stomach is still a certain size. So whilst you might need a huge amount of calories on a cellular level, on a digestive level, your body may struggle initially to cope with that huge demand. So number one, it's normal that happens. And number two, with practice and with time and with continued feeding, your stomach can get used to more calories, your digestion will get faster, and also, you know, as you progress, once your body has had the calories that it needs, and it can, you know, potentially not need quite as many in the future, you know, that will all ease up in time as well. But you just have to look at it like, okay, you might be uncomfortable in the initial periods, but it's so worth it, and it's just needed, and the only way out is through, essentially. You know, you might also find that when you start eating, the types of foods that you need are sort of more junk food or more easily digestible foods. So like, I really wanted ice cream and burgers and milkshakes and things like that were very soft, palatable, kind of high sugar, not complex carbohydrates, not dense things. I would never have wanted like a sweet potato or anything like that, because all I wanted was just, you know, junk food, essentially. So don't worry, your body will completely ask what it needs, and it will completely get used to having these larger amounts of food, because, you know, in the end it's exactly what you need. So you just have to persevere with it. So 3,000 calories, it might seem like a lot, but actually it's not a lot at all. It's what healthy individuals will naturally eat. Obviously that will completely change based on how active you are, or, as I said before, if you're breastfeeding, or if you're heavier or something like that. If you know, if you're working on something and you'll find yourself really applying your mind, you can need more calories, just because that's a, you know, an active part of your body that requires calories to function. So all these different things can affect how much you need. So the best way to look at it is to use the minimums as a base guideline, and then that will kickstart your hunger into how many calories you actually will naturally need, and it can be a huge amount. Hang on, my dog has my pen lid. So essentially, the best thing to do is to make sure that you're eating unlimited amounts. So use it as base level, use your minimums, but then go from there. Keep going. If you're still hungry, eat. If you're thinking about food, eat. The number one rule is to just not restrict in any way, because if you're restricting, then you're still holding in some sort of barrier to your body finally getting the nutrients and the food and the calories that it needs, and this is only going to hinder your recovery. There is nothing essentially standing in your way of recovering apart from yourself and apart from how much you choose to eat. So if you think, well, my minimums are 2,500, so I'm just going to do 2,500 and that's it because I don't want to get fat, well, your body needs to gain the weight it needs to gain. So if you're scared of eating too much to put on weight, you are just postponing the inevitable. if you release the floodgates and if you eat 5, 6, 7,000 calories in a day, then you are just getting to point B from point A faster. You need to make that journey, and your body needs to go through that healing process, and that may mean gaining some weight. You know, I've been open about my journey, about the fact that I had to gain a bit of weight, a lot of weight to recover, and I'm so glad that I just let the floodgates go and just ate as much as I needed, because I would have just prolonged something that was going to happen anyway, and it just would have taken me longer. So instead of taking 2 years before my body sort of started tapering down, it would have taken maybe 4 years if I had just eaten the set amount of base calories that the ED Institute recommends. Instead, I was eating 3,500, 5,000, 6,000 calories sometimes, and I know other people who have eaten much more than that. In the Minnesota Starvation Experiment, the men who were recovering, you know, unrestrictedly, one of them had 11,000 calories in a day. You know, it's completely possible, and there are no limits, essentially. So don't put limits on yourself. The only thing that you should monitor is, are you getting enough? Because if you're not getting enough, then that's what you need to tweak. But in terms of a ceiling, there is none. And it just means that you're just going to recover faster, and you're going to feel better, and you're going to gain weight that you need to gain in order to heal properly. You know, first that will be water, and then it'll be fat mass, and then your body will be finally able to gain fat-free mass that it needs to, and only once it's done all that, and only once it's stabilised, will then the weight be able to come off if it needs to. So it's like, you know, it's like if you've got a journey to drive 6 hours, yes, you may need some breaks, but is it better to just sort of go for it and do the journey and get it done? Or, you know, would you meander here and there and stop everywhere? Well, no, if you wanted to get to the destination faster, you would just go, wouldn't you? And that's kind of true in recovery, and true of the amount of calories you need. So I really, really encourage anybody to find out their minimums and just add more onto it, you know. There's no point delaying what needs to happen, and the faster you do, the better you're going to feel. There are sort of warnings and caveats that if you are severely underweight, or if you have been eating a very, very low amount of calories, there is a small risk of refeeding syndrome, which is kind of something that can happen if your body gets a shock and suddenly has many more calories than it's been used to. So with all the recommendations, there's always kind of an advice and guidance to seek medical advice before you do this. But from a personal point of view, I would say that there will be limited people that kind of understand this process. And so you may need to search for a doctor or health professional that is an advocate of you not starving yourself or dieting or restricting. Because if you find somebody that is cautious about you eating what your body wants, then they're not going to be good for you in your recovery. So I would definitely keep searching, essentially. There is a recommendation that if you feel that you may be at risk of refeeding syndrome, then, you know, to increase your calories very slowly, and that can be for the first month or so, where you increase in increments instead of just bam 10,000 calories on day one. So that may be something to consider, but it's obviously a small risk versus the very large risk of your damaged body, you know, making your health not what it should be, essentially. And the answer to that is eating, and eating enough. So yeah, I hope this was helpful, and if you want any more advice, or if you have further questions, then just let me know in the comments below. Okay, bye.